Morning light fell across the kitchen table. Grace Ward sat with her tea and a small list on a torn sheet of paper. Bread, soap, bank. She read the word bank twice. The letters looked heavy. She felt a slow ache in her chest, the kind that comes when you know something is wrong, but you hope just for a second that it is not. Her son Mark arrived early, smiling too fast. "Ready, Mom?" "It's just routine," he said. His voice was soft, kind on the surface. His eyes were not. They moved over the counters, the keys, the mail. His wife, Kayla, followed behind him with a folder pressed tight to her side. "We'll get you all set," Kayla said. "Less stress, one signature and done." Grace folded her list. She stood up slowly. "Let me get my sweater," she said. In the bedroom, she opened a small wooden box. Inside was her late husband's tie pin. A tiny dot sat in the center where a gem should be. Beneath it, a thin wire. The pin was a recorder. She had bought it after hard nights of worry and one quiet meeting at the bank with a manager who listened. She pinned it to her collar with careful hands. She checked her purse, wallet, ID, a plain envelope with 4 words written on a card inside. She took a long breath. She moved back to the living room. Mark grabbed the house keys before she could. "I'll drive," he said. He held the door open but did not step aside. Kayla smiled. "We'll be back before lunch." In the car, the air smelled like a strong new scent. Mark had sprayed something to cover the stale odor of fast food. The radio played low. He talked about the weather, about a sale at the hardware store, about how banks make things too hard for older people. "We're just helping Mom," he said. "You taught me to take care of family." Grace watched the road. Trees passed, bending in the wind. She thought about the years when Mark was small and ran across the same street with a baseball glove and a laugh that echoed. The memory broke her heart a little. She did not speak. She saved her breath. At a red light, Kayla flipped the folder open and angled it toward Grace. Lines of print covered the pages. "These are the forms," she said. "They put everything under one roof." "So simple." She tapped a page here. Initial here. "It just means they can talk to me if the bank needs anything." Grace looked at the spot Kayla tapped. She saw the words "Power of Attorney" in bold letters above. She did not point to them. She did not argue. She closed the folder with one finger and handed it back. The bank branch sat on a corner of the small town road. Glass windows, bright signs, a row of potted plants at the door. People went in and out with quiet faces. Mark parked close to the entrance. He rushed to open Grace's door before she could reach for the handle. "Careful," he said as if she might fall. She stepped onto the curb and stood tall, even though her knees were stiff. Inside, the air was cool. A faint smell of coffee drifted from somewhere behind the counter. The teller line was short. A woman with kind eyes and a name tag reading Maya looked up and smiled at Grace. The smile changed for a moment when she saw the bruise on Grace's forearm. Then it smoothed back into a polite line. "Good morning," she said. Mark guided Grace toward a small seating area. He pressed a pen into her hand. "Let me fill the forms," he said. "You just sign." He laid the folder on the low table and lowered his face to whisper. "No need to make a scene, Mom. It's routine." Kayla sat close on Grace's other side. Too close. Her perfume was sharp and sweet. She sat one hand on Grace's elbow. Not a soft touch, a warning touch. Grace kept her eyes on the far wall and counted in her mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Counting steadied her. "Let's see a banker," Mark called to the desk. "We have paperwork." His tone had weight in it now. He wanted speed. He wanted a room without windows. He wanted to pass the finish line before anyone looked too hard. A door clicked and a woman in a navy jacket stepped out. Her hair was pulled back. She wore a badge. Julia Brooks, branch manager. She recognized Grace with the quiet look of someone who does not forget faces. She also recognized Mark's grip on the pen, the location of Kayla's hand, and the way Grace's shoulder stayed a fraction too still. "Good morning," Julia said, calm and warm. "What can we help you with today, Miss Ward?" Grace lifted her chin. "Paperwork," she said. Her voice did not shake. "Perfect," Julia replied. "Let me find an open office so we can be comfortable." She turned to the teller line and gave a small nod that meant nothing to most people and everything to trained staff. Maya's hand went to a phone. Mark gathered the papers in a rush. "We don't need—" "It's no trouble," Julia said, still gentle. "We like to review documents in private so we can answer questions." She led the way, no hurry in her steps. The carpet muffled sound. The office she chose had a glass wall and a door that closed with a light click. Inside sat 2 chairs and a small table. A white noise machine hummed in the corner. A small camera blinked slowly near the ceiling. Grace took the chair where she could see the door and the hallway beyond it. Mark sat across from her, bouncing one knee. Kayla pressed in on Grace's side, folding her open again, finger pointing again. "Here," she said. "Initials go fast when you don't overthink." Julia took a seat at the edge of the table. She did not reach for the pen. "Before we begin, I'll make copies of your IDs and I'll scan these forms so our system has them on file." Her tone stayed even. "Miss Ward, may I have your ID?" Grace opened her purse, ID wallet, the plain envelope. Her hand found each item by feel. She placed her ID on the table. She placed the deposit slip that sat in her wallet on top of it as if by habit, and she touched the envelope but did not take it out yet. Not yet. Her heart hit the inside of her chest once, twice, hard. Mark slid the pen closer. His smile looked tired now. "Sign, Mom," he said. He spoke softly, but his jaw was tight. "We need to be somewhere after this." Kayla's fingers tightened on Grace's arm until the skin blanched. "We're doing this for you," she murmured. "Don't make it hard." Grace turned her head and looked at her son. She did not look away. For a moment, the room went quiet in her mind. She saw his first day of school. She saw him move into his first apartment, the way he stood proud with the keys in his hand. She saw him on the day of the funeral, holding her elbow like he did now, guiding, always guiding. She let the pain of that memory pass through her and not stop. "I will read first," she said, simple words, not loud. A line she could stand on. Julia nodded, as if that was the only correct answer. "Of course." Mark laughed once, short. "Mom, it's all standard. We talked about this." Grace put the pen down. She reached again into her purse. Her fingers closed around the envelope. She felt the weight of the small card inside. For words, not a speech, not a fight, a call for help. She drew the envelope out and slid it beneath the deposit slip with a smooth motion. No drama, no pause. "Here are my documents," she said to Julia. Her eyes met Julia's and held for a second longer than normal. Just long enough to say, "I trust you." Just long enough to say, "Please see me." The white noise machine hummed. The camera blinked. Outside the glass wall, Maya looked over from the counter with the same calm face and the same changed eyes. Grace breathed in. The pen lay quiet on the table, its tip pointed away from her. The clock on the wall ticked once. The day kept moving, but Grace had planted her feet. The visit might be called routine, but nothing about this moment was small. It was the line between who decides and who obeys. It was the space where a quiet woman chose not to be pushed. Julia picked up the stack with steady hands. "I'll make copies," she said. Her tone was light, like this was normal. She slid Grace's ID and the deposit slip into a clear sleeve. The plain envelope lay between them. Julia did not look at it yet. She stood, smiled once at the group, and walked to the copier outside the office. The hallway was short. The copier hummed. Julia lifted the sleeve and let the envelope fall into her palm. She opened it under the lid, quick and neat, for words were printed in block letters on a small card. "Help! Under duress!" She felt the air change inside her chest. She did not show it on her face. She put the card back, closed the sleeve, and pressed the green button. Paper slid out. She took one copy for the file and one for her pocket. On her way back, she stopped at the teller line for half a second. "Water for the office, please," she told Mia. It sounded like a small request. Mia heard more in it. She reached for 2 paper cups, and with the other hand, pressed the alert on her keyboard that quietly notified the guard. Near the entrance, the guard lifted his eyes. He did not move fast. He moved like someone who had done this before and would do it right. Julia returned to the office and set a cup in front of Grace. "Here you go." She placed the copies on the table and smiled at Mark and Kayla. "Thank you for your patience." Mark leaned forward. "Great. So we can sign in a moment," Julia said. She turned the white noise machine up one notch. She placed a small recorder on the table and slid a sheet across. "We record document reviews for accuracy. It protects everyone. Do I have your consent to record?" Kayla's mouth twitched. "Is that necessary?" "It's our standard," Julia said. Calm, steady, she pressed the red dot. The light glowed. Mark tapped the folder. "We just need to consolidate her accounts and set me as the point person." I already explained it to Mom. Julia nodded. I'll ask Miss Ward a few questions in her own words. Then we'll go line by line. She turned to Grace with warm, direct eyes. Miss Ward, can you tell me what these forms will do? Grace touched the edge of the table. Her voice was even. They will give my son control over my money in my house, she said. She did not look at Mark. Mark shifted. That's not how, Mom, you're making it sound. Julia held up a hand, polite but firm. I'll come to you in a moment. She opened the folder. Who prepared these documents? Kayla answered too fast. A mobile notary did. It's all standard. Julia read the stamp on the first page and let her eyes pass over the spacing and the seal. The font was off. The seal was smudged. She did not react. And do you have your own attorney, Miss Ward? No, Grace said softly. Mark smiled like he was helping. She doesn't need one. It's routine. Understood, Julia said. She stood again, took 2 steps to the glass wall, and looked out as if checking the line. Maya met her eyes and gave the small nod that meant, message received. Near the door, the guard turned the small key in the top latch that controlled the front. It clicked. Customers could leave, but no one new would enter. The branch went a shade quieter, like a room holding its breath. Julia came back and sat. She folded her hands. Before we continue, I need to verify the power of attorney with the notary office and with our legal team. That can take a few minutes. She smiled toward the lobby. In the meantime, I'd like to confirm some account details with Ms. Ward in private. It's part of our Know Your Customer rules. Would you mind waiting in the lobby? I'll call you right back in. Mark blinked, then laughed like it was a joke. She's hard of hearing. I'll help. Julia's tone did not change. For KYC, I must speak to the account holder alone. She glanced at the guard, who took 1 step closer to the door. It won't be long. Kayla's fingers tightened on Grace's arm, then let go. Fine, she said, voice bright. We'll be right outside. Mark stood slowly, keeping his eyes on Grace as if he could make her move by will alone. He placed both hands on the back of the chair and bent down close. Don't make this messy, he said under his breath. We have plans today. The recorder and Grace's taping caught every word. Grace kept her gaze on Julia. She did not blink. The door closed. The white noise hummed. The room felt bigger without Mark and Kayla in it. Julia gave it a beat, as if letting the air settle. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low and kind. Grace, she said, using her first name for the first time. I read your note. Grace's face softened for a second, then pressed tight again. Thank you, she whispered. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, Julia said. You can answer yes or no or tell me more. 1. Are you being pressured to sign documents you don't want to sign? Yes. 2. Do you understand that these forms would give Mark control to move your money and your home without you? Yes. 3. Do you feel safe at home with Mark and Kayla visiting you? Grace stared at her hands. Her thumbnail had a pale ridge at the edge. No, she said. Thank you, Julia said. She did not rush. We will help. I'm calling our legal team now. I will also call the police for a welfare check and adult protective services, because that is required when we see signs of elder financial abuse. She paused. Do you want us to contact someone you trust? A friend or family member who is not here? My older son, Grace said. Ben, do you have his number? Grace did. She pulled a small notebook from her purse and turned to a page where the numbers were written in careful block print. Julia copied them to a bank form titled Trusted Contact. This is a person we can call if we cannot reach you or if something seems wrong, she explained. It does not give him control. It lets us reach someone who will stand up for you. Grace nodded. Relief tried to rise in her chest and turned into a tight ache. Please call him, she said. I will, Julia said. She stood and went to the phone on the credenza. She dialed a direct line to the bank's regional compliance desk. Her words were simple and exact. This is Julia Brooks at River Street Branch. I have a senior customer, Miss Grace Ward, with suspected undue influence by her son and daughter-in-law. Possible forged POA. I am initiating an in-branch hold and requesting law enforcement and APS. We are recording. The front door's on controlled entry. She listened. She gave the account number. She confirmed the time. She thanked them and hung up. Then she dialed the local police non-emergency line that handles financial cases. Her voice did not change. We need an officer for a possible elder financial exploitation in progress. Outside the glass, Mark paced. He spoke into his phone, head bent, hand chopping the air. "No, we're still here," he hissed. "She's being slow. It's the manager. Just be ready." I said, "Be ready." Kayla stood close, eyes flicking to the office door, then to the guard, then back to Mark. The recorder on Grace's pin took it all in. Every word, every scrape of his shoe on the carpet. Julia finished the calls and came back to the table. "Grace," she said, quieter now, "you did everything right. The note, the calm, the weight. I'm proud of you." The words were simple. They landed like a hand on a shoulder, steadying. Grace let out a long breath she did not know she was holding. She lifted the water cup and drank. Her hand shook once, then stilled. "We're going to bring them back in," Julia said. "I'm going to ask some neutral questions while we wait. Answer only what you want. I will keep you safe in this room. If at any point you want them out again, say the word review, and I'll pause and move them out. That will be our signal." Grace met her eyes. "Review," she repeated softly, testing the shape of the word. It felt like a key. Julia opened the door. "Thank you for waiting," she said to Mark and Kayla. "Let's continue. Legal is reviewing the documents now. I have a few standard questions." Mark strode in and dropped into the chair like he was reclaiming space. Kayla sat closer to Grace than before, a thin smile on her face. The guard stayed within sight of the glass. "Who completed the notary?" Julia asked, pen poised. "Name and contact, please." "Rick," Mark said. "Mobile notary. He was recommended." "Fast guy. Do you have his card?" Julia asked. Mark patted his pockets and looked at Kayla. She dug in her purse and pulled out a wrinkled card with a first name and a phone number typed crooked. Julia took it and placed it on the table without comment. "And what is the reason for consolidating today?" she asked. "Efficiency," Kayla said too quickly. "Grace gets confused with bills. We just want to help." Grace looked at the paperwork in front of her. The words swam for a second and settled. She placed her hands flat on the table and kept them there like anchors. Julia nodded. She wrote the words stated next to Kayla's sentence. Not confirmed. It was a small thing. It mattered. Her eyes flicked to Grace, a question there. Grace shook her head the faintest amount. Julia looked back at the papers. Outside, the door latch gave a soft click as the guard checked it again. The branch was quiet. The clock hand moved over the 12 and started down the other side. Somewhere far away, a siren rose, not loud yet, a thin line of sound drawing closer through the town streets. Mark leaned in and dropped his voice. "Can we move this along?" he said. "We have an appointment after this." "We will proceed as soon as legal clears the documents," Julia said. She met his eyes and did not look away. "Until then, nothing is signed." Grace kept breathing in a slow, even rhythm. The recorder sat cold against her collarbone. The water cup left a ring on the table. She placed the pen beside it, tip still capped. She felt the change in the room, even if Mark did not. The visit had shifted. The part where she was led was over. The part where she was heard had begun. The siren grew louder, then faded as a patrol car stopped outside. The guard glanced toward the door and nodded to Julia. She kept her face calm. She turned the page and asked one more neutral question as if nothing had changed. A soft knock came. Julia opened the office door halfway. 2 officers stood there. One was a woman with a neat bun and a small notebook. The other was tall with kind eyes. Julia spoke in a low voice. "Thank you for coming. Possible elder financial abuse. We're recording in here." The officer stepped in. "I'm Officer Ramirez," the tall one said. "This is Officer Chin. We're going to speak with everyone one at a time. No one is under arrest at this moment. We just need to understand what's happening." Mark leaned back and tried to laugh. "What's happening is a family errand. We don't need police." Officer Ramirez did not look at him first. He looked at Grace. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Grace folded her hands in her lap. "I am now," she said. Officer Chin's eyes went to the pale marks on Grace's arm. "How did you get that bruise?" Kayla crossed her legs and answered for Grace. "She bruises easily." She bumped a chair. Grace kept her voice even. "She squeezed me." Silence sat in the room for a beat. The recorder light glowed red. The white noise machine hummed. Out in the lobby, customers spoke in quiet tones. The branch held its breath. Officer Ramirez nodded once. "Well, separate for statements. Ms. Ward, I'll talk with you and Manager Brooks here. Mr. Carter, Mrs. Carter, please step to the chairs outside." An officer will remain with you. Mark rose slowly. His jaw worked. He bent close to Grace as he passed. Don't do this, he whispered. We're family. The recorder at Grace's collar caught the hiss of his breath. When the door closed, the room felt lighter. Officer Ramirez pulled a chair closer to Grace and sat. Officer Chin stood near the glass with a clear view of the hallway. Julia stayed at the table, hands folded. Ms. Ward, Ramirez said. Do you want to be here today? No. Did someone pressure you to sign papers you do not understand? Yes, who? My son Mark, his wife Kayla. Have they taken your mail? Yes, they collect it first. They tell me what to sign. They say I will be put in a care home if I refuse. Julia listened without interrupting. She took a slow breath and let it out as if guiding the room back to steady ground. Officer Ramirez's voice was soft. Do you feel safe at home when they visit? No, Grace said. Her eyes burned. She kept her chin level. Thank you, he said. I'm going to take a photo of your arm. He used a small camera, asked permission, and clicked a close, clear picture. He noted the date and time. Do you have any proof of pressure? Notes, recordings, witnesses. Grace touched the tie pin. This records, she said. I also gave a note to the bank. The teller saw it. The manager helped. Julia spoke then. I activated our in-branch hold. Legal is reviewing a power of attorney they brought. We suspect the notary stamp is fake. We also have video from the lobby. Our policy allows us to share with police upon request. Officer Chin wrote this down. Please preserve all footage and audio. We'll request copies. A call light flashed on Julia's desk. She picked up the phone. Legal, she said, then listened. Understood. She hung up and met the officer's eyes. Compliance confirms the notary number on this stamp does not exist. They also reviewed an attempted change last week using a similar stamp. We rejected it then. Pattern suggests forgery. Grace's hands tightened for a heartbeat, then relaxed. The words settled over her like a blanket and a weight at the same time. It meant she had been right. It also meant her son had crossed a line you cannot uncross. There was another knock. The guard opened the door carefully. A man in work boots and a dusty jacket stood behind him, chest rising fast. I'm Ben Ward, he said. My mom called. Or the bank did. They said she needed me. Grace stood before she knew she would. Ben, she said. Her voice cracked on his name. He crossed the small space in 2 steps and took her hands. He did not hug her hard. He held her like something fragile and strong at the same time. Are you okay? He asked. I am now, she said again. Officer Ramirez explained in short, clear lines. Ben listened with his jaw clenched and his eyes wet. He nodded once. He looked at Julia. Thank you, he said, and meant it. Through the glass, Mark saw Ben and went still. His face shifted from surprise to anger to a smooth smile in a second. Kayla angled her body to speak into his ear. Mark's hand lifted as if to push the door. The guard moved an inch. Mark's hand dropped. We're going to bring them back, Officer Chin said. We'll keep voices level. We need clean answers on record. They came in and took their chairs. Mark spoke first. Mom is confused. She mixes up dates and loses bills. We're helping. Officer Ramirez kept his voice the same. Ms. Ward, do you pay your own bills? Yes, Grace said. On the 1st and the 15th, I write the check and I walk it to the mailbox. Does anyone else have access to your online accounts? No, Mr. Carter, Ramirez said, turning. Why do you need power of attorney today? Mark spread his hands. To simplify, she said she wanted help. I'm the one who shows up. Officer Chin wrote, then asked, Who is Rick? The notary. Friend of a friend, Kayla said. He's legit, Julia spoke, still calm. Our legal department could not find his commission. The stamp number is not valid. That is a crime. Kayla's face held a smile that did not match her eyes. Maybe it's a typo. Ramirez wrote this down and did not react. He asked for dates, for places, for times. He asked who printed the forms, who brought them to the house, who carried the mail. He asked where Mark had been last Thursday at 3 when the bank had blocked the earlier attempt. Mark said he was at work. His eyes slid away. Kayla said she did not remember. Her heel tapped the floor in a fast, thin rhythm. Outside, the branch moved on a slow track. A printer purred. Someone laughed softly near the ATM. Inside, the room felt tight and bright. Ben sat quiet, hands on his knees. When he spoke, his voice was low but strong. Mark, he said, you can tell the truth now, or you can tell it later with cuffs on. Mark snapped his head toward him. You always thought you were better. Ben did not rise. "No," he said. "I work with my hands. That's all?" The recorder caught the sharp inhale from Kayla. She leaned toward Mark. "Stop," she whispered. "Just stop talking." Julia's desk phone flashed again. She lifted it and listened. "Thank you," she said, then put it down. "The bank has placed a temporary hold on any changes to Ms. Ward's accounts pending the outcome of this review," she said. "As of now, no funds will move. No titles will change. Nothing will be signed." Mark's patience shattered. He pushed his chair back so hard it scraped the floor. "You can't tell us what to do," he said, voice rising. "This is family." Officer Ramirez stood. He did not raise his voice. "Sit down, sir," he said. Now Mark sat. The room steadied. Julia looked at Grace. "Would you like a short break?" she asked. Grace looked down at her hands. They were steady. "No," she said. "I want this finished." Officer Chin nodded. "Then we'll do one more thing. We'll play back a small piece of today's recording for the record. Then we'll step outside while Manager Brooks checks a document." She glanced at Julia, who understood. Julia pressed a button. The room filled with the sound of Mark's whisper from earlier. "Don't make this messy. We have plans today." Then the softer but clear words from the lobby video. Kayla's voice low and sharp. "Initials go fast when you don't overthink." The sound ended. The room was quiet again. No one spoke for a long breath. Officer Ramirez looked at Grace. "We're close," he said. "Stay with me." Julia stood and gathered a slim folder from her drawer. She placed it on the table but did not open it yet. She looked at Grace, then at Ben, then at the officers. "There is one more piece you should see," she said. "It will explain why nothing here can hurt Miss Ward today." Mark's face changed. Fear flickered. Kayla gripped the chair arms. Ben's hand found his mother's and held on. The guard checked the latch one more time. The bank hummed on. The door stayed shut. The room at last belonged to the truth that was about to be said. Julia opened the slim folder. The pages were clean and clipped. She placed the top one on the table so everyone could see. "This is a copy of a trust," Julia said. Her voice was steady. "It is signed and dated 3 weeks ago. It lists Grace Ward as the grantor. It names Grace and her older son, Ben Ward, as co-trustees. Her home and savings are already inside this trust." Mark stared at the page like it was written in another language. "What does that even mean?" "It means," Julia said, "that even if Grace signed your papers today, nothing would move. The trust controls her assets. Not you?" Kayla gave a small, sharp laugh. "You're bluffing." Julia slid the second page across. It showed the date, the signatures, and the title to the house transferred into the trust. "We verified this with our records this morning," she said. "It is active." Silence fell like a dropped blanket. Then Mark spoke low and tight. "You did this behind my back." Grace met his eyes. "I did this to protect myself." Mark's face changed. Pride collapsed into panic. "You think you're so clever?" he said. "You think you can make me look like a thief?" Officer Ramirez shifted his weight, calm and ready. "No one is calling names," he said. "We are describing actions." Kayla leaned forward, voice sweet and thin. "Grace, we only wanted to help. You're tired. Bills are hard. We were trying to keep you safe." Grace looked at the faint bruise on her arm. She looked at the pen Mark had pushed into her hand. She looked at Julia, who did not look away. "Safe does not hurt," she said. Julia turned the small recorder toward the center of the table. "For the record," she said. "This branch received a note that said, 'Help, under duress.' We observed a customer being pressured to sign legal documents. Legal has confirmed the notary stamp is false. We have video of physical pressure. We have audio of threats." Officer Chin lifted her pen. "Mark Carter, did you bring these documents into the bank today to get Grace to sign?" Mark opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. His eyes flicked to the door. There was nowhere to go. "Yes," he said finally. "Did you know the stamp might not be valid?" she asked. He hesitated. "I trusted someone." "I don't know notary stuff. Who is someone?" Officer Chin asked. Mark rubbed his face. "A guy my friend knows," he muttered. "He said it was fine." Ramirez nodded once, as if that answered a box on his form. He turned to Kayla. "Mrs. Carter, did you put pressure on Grace's arm today?" Kayla's smile froze. "I touched her so she would not lose her place." "We have video that shows force," Ramirez said. "We also have photos of the bruise. Do you want to change your answer?" Kayla's eyes went flat. "No," Julia folded her hands. Grace, she said, you and I met 2 weeks ago. You asked questions about safety. You made a plan. Today that plan worked. Grace felt tears rise. She did not let them fall yet. Thank you, she said. Ben squeezed his mother's hand. You did this, he said softly. You saved yourself. Outside the office, the bank kept moving. Inside, the story had reached its end. The end was not loud. It was clear. Officer Ramirez stood. Mr. Carter, Mrs. Carter, he said. You are being detained for investigation into attempted financial exploitation and forgery. You will come with us now. Mark shoved back his chair again, but the energy was gone from his body. It bumped the carpet and stopped. He looked at Grace like a child about to fall. Mom, he said, voice breaking. Don't let them, please. Grace's throat ached. She loved her son. She also loved the truth. I am your mother, she said. I am not your target. Kayla stood without looking at anyone. I want a lawyer, she said. Right now. You can request one at the station, Ramirez said. He nodded to the guard and to Officer Chin. They guided Mark and Kayla to the door. The latch clicked. The sound was small and final. When the door closed, the room breathed. The recorder light still glowed. Julia pressed it off. The red dot went dark. Grace sat very still. Then the tears came, quiet and steady. Ben pulled his chair close. He did not say it's okay. He did not make promises he could not keep. He held her hand and let her cry. Julia brought a box of tissues from the shelf and set it within reach. We will file our reports, she said. We will preserve the video and audio. We will provide them to the police. We will place alerts on your accounts so any unusual activity is flagged. Grace nodded. I want to press charges, she said. The words were heavy and right. I will not be quiet about this. You don't have to be, Julia said. A soft tap sounded at the glass. Maya stood there with 2 fresh cups of water. She set them inside the door and gave Grace a small, brave smile. Grace smiled back. It felt like the first time her face had done that today without effort. Officer Ramirez returned after a few minutes. They're on their way to the station, he said. We'll be in touch about statements and next steps. Do you have a safe place to go? Home, Ben said. With me there. I'll change the locks today. She won't be alone. Ramirez nodded. Good, he said. He handed Grace a card. If they contact you, call this number. If anyone shows up at the house, call 911. We'll add patrol checks for a few days. They left. The office felt larger again. Julia gathered the copies and the trust papers and placed them in a neat stack for Grace to take. Do you want me to walk you out? She asked. Yes, Grace said. They moved through the lobby. People looked up and then looked away, kind in the way strangers are when they know something hard just happened. At the door, the guard unlocked the latch and held it open. Warm air touched Grace's face. She stepped out into the afternoon. Ben drove. The radio was off. The town rolled by like a calm river. At a light, Ben spoke. Mom, he said. I should have seen it sooner. Grace shook her head. You see it now, she said. At the house, Ben took out his tool bag and went to the front door. He changed the locks with clean, sure movements. He installed a small camera above the porch. He wrote down a list, stopped mail forwarding, new phone passcode, no unannounced visits. Grace made tea. The kettle sang. The sound filled the kitchen like a gentle bell. They sat at the table, the same table where the day had started, with a small list and a heavy word. Grace took out a piece of paper. She wrote in slow print, Mark, I love you. I want you to get help. But you cannot come to my house. You cannot touch my money. You cannot decide for me. If you change, we can talk. If you try to take from me again, I will call the police again. Mom? She folded the letter and set it aside. She drank her tea. Her hands were steady. Evening light reached across the kitchen floor. Ben checked the new locks a final time. The house felt different. Not new, not untouched, but safe. Grace stood at the sink and looked out at the small garden she and her late husband had planted years ago. The wind moved the leaves. She thought of the word that started the day, routine. She smiled once at the lie of that word. Today had not been routine. Today had been a choice. She turned off the light and walked to the living room. The house was quiet but not empty. It was hers. It would remain hers. Let us know in the comment, where are you watching from? Please subscribe to the channel Her Side of the Story. Thanks for watching until here.